Om Ajnanatimidandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Dhena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. So, what if you were asked tonight to go to a foreign country to spread Krishna consciousness by yourself? A place that you don't understand the language of. And let's just leave it at that. I won't pile on. You ready? So, such things have happened. And, for instance, Sudama Prabhu and his wife, Chintamani, were in Los Angeles, and Srila Prabhupada called them to his room and asked them to go to Japan. And that's at a time when Japan was much more isolated than it is now. And Sudama said, okay, Prabhupada, but one thing, I don't speak Japanese, neither does Chintamani. We don't know anything about the culture. And Prabhupada then said, imagine that you're in a house and you're in a neighborhood where nobody speaks your language and your house begins to burn and you need to get help. So how do you do it? Even though you don't speak the language. There, you show us. See the demonstration? Go ahead. You would figure out a way. You'd be expressive and you'd be able to gesticulate and do whatever you had to do in order to bring people's attention, and you communicate it. And Prabhupada often gave this example. If your desire is strong, then you'll be able to figure out how to communicate if your purpose is strong. So this is the first in what I like to call the 6 secret principles of success in bhakti. And I coined the phrase, a house on fire desire. So when you develop a house on fire desire, then you will figure out how to move forward. In fact, in the Gita, Krishna says, Tesham satata yuktanam bhajatam priti purvakam dharami buddhi yogam tam yena mamupayanti te. Who can say what that means? Yes, Prabhu?
The one who's constantly engaged in serving Krishna with love, he gives the understanding by which one can come to him.
Perfect, thank you. And Krishna also says in the Bhagavad-gita, Ye yata mam prapadyante tam stataiva bhajamyaham mamavartmanavartante manusya partha sarvasha. That he responds to us according to the way in which we approach him and the kind of the desire that we have towards him. So we'll find that bhakti descends by grace, by the grace of Krishna, and it's in response to the type of desire that we have. In fact, when Arjuna asked Krishna how karma works in the material world, karma brahmodbhavam vidi, he says in the 5th chapter of the Bhagavad-gita, Krishna says that we're actually moving through various species of life based on our desire, the desire that we develop in this life. More towards Purusha Prakriti Stohi Bhunkte Prakriti Jan Gunan Karanam Guna Sangosya Sarasad Yoni Janmasu. Because of the kind of association we take and the way in which we develop ourselves, we are affected by different modalities. And our desire is affected by the particular modes that we're in. And therefore we attain different destinations. So desire is a place to look. The intensity of the desire is sometimes compared to boiling water. When you boil water, at first, that stage of boiling, you may see just tiny little bubbles. And that's just the initial stage of boiling. My grandmother was a chef, and she used to say that that stage it's called the water is smiling. Get it smiling. So it's just tiny little bubbles coming up. So that's the initial stage of boiling. And then it starts to bubble more, the intermediate stage. And at the top stage, it's not just boiling, it's roiling. It's overspilling, it's furiously boiling. And for those who are interested in advancing in the process of bhakti, those who are interested may attend to increasing their desire to the boiling point, to furiously boiling. If one develops this kind of desire, then Krishna responds in kind. This is mentioned also by Rupa Goswami, who says, Krishna bhakti ras bhavito mati kriyato yadi krito prilabhyate tatalalyam ekamulyam ekalam janmakoti sukritirna labhyate. That you can't get bhakti by performing pious activities. Even if you do it for thousands and millions of lifetimes, it won't add up to bhakti. But he said there's one way in which you can get it, and that's the intensity of your desire. In fact, the desire has to be so great that he coined the phrase lalyam. It means greed. It's like an intense form of greed to have it. And when one's desire comes to this point, then one gets traction in bhakti. So there's an old saying, where there's a will, there's a way. And this is applicable in our lives, and especially in the practice of our bhakti. And so what are the ways in which one can come to the boiling point? One is by sangha. If one associates with devotees who have an intense desire, then one can also imbibe that kind of desire. If you spend time with those who will not waste even a second, because they're so eager to take in spiritual sound vibration, then you'll start doing that also. And you'll take up the same kind of practices that they're doing. It's remarkable how influenceable we are, how malleable we are, according to our association. I've noticed it. I have a friend, Satyadev Prabhu. I travel with him to Japan. We've been going the last 19 years together. I remember the first trip I made with him. One of his nicknames he grew up with in the Krishna conscious movement was Butter Dave, because he likes butter so much. And I don't really take butter, but I noticed when I came back from the trip, I was with him for 2.5 weeks in Japan. I came back and I asked Nirkula for some butter. This was many years ago. And then she said, wait a minute, you don't eat butter? And I said, yeah, right, what happened? I noticed that just by the association. And we pick up the subtleties, and we'll also form our character because of the kind of association that we take. Therefore, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu based the science of Krishna consciousness on the kind of association that we have. And when asked what is a Vaishnava, he said, Asat Sangatyag e Vaishnavachar. A Vaishnava is somebody who avoids bad association. And then, of course, in his teaching to Sanatana Goswami, he emphasized how the beginning of bhakti, the middle of bhakti, and the end of bhakti are all achieved by association with devotees. As an example, from the 7th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, Prahlad Maharaj says, give me the verse. Okay, then give me the 5th canto. You have your sloka book? Okay. Anyway, they'll pop right back in. They'll come back. They're just hanging around somewhere. He emphasizes again and again the importance of association for developing the strong desire to serve Krishna. No, but that'll work. Mahat sevam dvaram ahurva muktes tamo dvaram yoshitam sangi sangam mahantaste samachita prasanta vimanyavak surida sarvaya. Give him the shloka book. Yeah, Vaishnava shloka, he should have it in his hands. And this verse says that the pathway to liberation is opened by the Sangha with Mahatmas, great souls. And then finally, an important point about desire. If you have a strong desire, your abilities in life and in bhakti will grow to meet your strong desire. As you develop that desire, Krishna will infuse you with the qualities and the abilities that you need to keep up with that level of desire. So if you work on developing your desire for bhakti by association, then the abilities will grow to meet your strong desire. So the first in the six secrets of six secret principles to success in bhakti, the first is desire. And it should be strong. Should be a house on fire desire. And we're just getting a shloka book, but they had to grow the paper first, and then harvest the ink, take it to a printer somewhere. Rahuganai tattapasanayati nachejaya nirvapanad grihadva nachandasanaiva jalagni surya vina mahatpadarajo pishekam. There, it was floating around somewhere. This is Rahuganai tattapasanayati. This is Jad Bharat. He's speaking to Maharaj Rahugana, and he says that, my dear King Rahugana, Rahuganai tattapasanayati, you can't attain success in life by tapasya, nachejaya nirvapanad grihadva. If you perfect the sannyasa ashram or the grihastha ashram, or if you perform severe austerities by going into the botanical gardens here in Denver, where there's these little ponds that are freezing over, and then you submerge yourself there with only your head sticking up through the ice, and you stay there all night, you can't attain bhakti by that. And also the fire, you can't, by sitting in hot fire during in the middle of the summer, you can't attain it. By all these kinds of severe austerities. He said, Vinam Mahapadarajopi, without taking an abhishek of the dust of the lotus feet of a Vaishnav, you can't attain success in bhakti. You have to get that. It means dedicating your life to your ideal in bhakti, one who has totally fixed his or her mind on the goal of Krishna. So, desire. Before I move to the next secret, I'll take some reflections. Anything that you heard that stuck so far? Did you raise your hand? Okay. What's the other verse? Naisham matista varurukramangrim spisharchanartha pagamo yadartaha mahiyasham padarajobhishekam nishkinshananam navranita yavat. And can you give us the translation, please?
Translation. Unless they smear upon their bodies the dust of the lotus feet of a Vaishnava, completely freed from material contamination, persons very much inclined toward materialistic life cannot be attached to the lotus feet of the Lord, who is glorified for his uncommon activities. Only by becoming Krishna conscious and taking shelter at the lotus feet of the Lord in this way can one be freed from material contamination.
Vaishnavas are important because they carry the Supreme Personality of Godhead within their heart. Even more importantly, they carry love for the Supreme Personality of Godhead within their heart. And that's why their association is so much desired. Even Krishna says that he gets purified by the dust from the feet of the Vaishnavas. So this is the be-all and end-all of Vaishnavism. That's why we call it Vaishnavism, because we worship Vaishnavas. And so Yudhishthira said to Vidura, you'll just have to take for granted no shlokas are flowing into my head tonight. But what is that? Okay, it'll come back. It's floating around the room. Anyway, we'll take some Bhagavad-gita Bhagavatas Tirtha Bhuta Swayam Vibho Tirtha Kurvanti Tirtani Swantak Stena Gadabrita, which means he's addressing the great pure soul Vidura, is Yudhishthira, and he says that you're a holy place of pilgrimage personified because you carry the Supreme Personality of God within your heart. Even when you go to the pilgrimage places, you purify them because you are the pinnacle of all purity. Okay, so now some reflections. Yes.
I was thinking of this song Manasadeho Geho by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. And And he's describing all the different ways that he wants to offer his entire mind and body and family and everything, and in happiness or distress, and all these qualifications of surrender. And then he kind of summarizes it by like how he's going to get it. Bhukti mukti spriha bhina je bhakta labhaite teka sangha anurakta. That I yearn for the association of that devotee who is completely devoid of all desires for worldly enjoyment and liberation.
Perfect. Really good citation. Thank you. What are the things stuck in your mind that you heard so far? Yes, Prabhu.
Question mark.
Okay.
What is the best, the maximum way one can take association? Like if you...
3 ways. First, by pranipat, which means you go with faith in the person you're approaching and in a humble mood, like open. And then pariprashnena, which means that you have relevant questions. So if you have strong desire, it means you're developing questions. When you're advancing in devotional service, you'll have more and more questions about how to advance. And when you're not, you're like, when there's questions, you go, meh, because what's the difference? But when you really want to advance in some discipline, you'll want to ask everything about it. And when you meet the right person who you feel can answer the questions, then you'll ask relevant questions that are so enlivening to the person, because such a person can understand the temperature of your desire, the level of your desire by the quality of questions that you're asking. In fact, this is something that comes up in the Bhagavatam regularly, where the sages at Naimisaranya, as an example, are appreciating, or Sutta Goswami rather, is appreciating the questions that the sages are asking and saying your questions are worthy because they relate to the world's welfare. They're about the higher self. And then finally, sevaya, that you should look for ways to render service. Because then, if you're an insignificant person and you're not a standout, you'll become a standout by rendering service. The person will start to notice you and then take time. And when you render selfless service to a pure soul, then that pure soul's heart opens up and the contents run out to you. They come pouring your direction. And according to the commentary for the verse, Evam Vrataswa Priyanama Kirtya Jatana Rago Jitachucha Uchar, which is about the way in which the heart becomes melted when one takes a vow in chanting Hare Krishna. The commentary in this verse by our acharyas say that the heart of a completely pure devotee whose heart has melted from the process of chanting Hare Krishna is like a river of rose apple juice. Therefore, when you render service to such a person selflessly, the heart will open and the rose apple juice nectar will flow out to you. Hare Krishna. Anyone else? Reflection? Yes, Prabhu.
I like the point to develop a eagerness, like if you're in a burning house, to share Krishna consciousness.
That's right. What's that called? House on Fire Desire. It's the name of my new book. Okay, so the second secret in the principles to success in bhakti is discipline. This word discipline comes from Latin, from a word that means learner. By discipline, you learn. And it's an exciting aspect of being a human being. We can employ discipline in our lives. And you can start with small things and learn to focus in certain areas, and then you'll notice that you improve, especially when you apply the tenets that are given by the great acharyas. For instance, if you look at the book Upadeshamrita, the Nectar of Instruction, you'll find various very clear instructions about how to practice bhakti. And if you learn the process of discipline by applying those on a regular basis and being consistent over time, then you'll see that the principles work very well. And you'll feel that you're advancing and you're learning the science of self-realization for yourself, because you're the only one that can discipline yourself. And when you do, you gain what is called spiritual integrity. It means that you know that you took the trouble to discipline yourself, and therefore you feel confident in your ability to do it more, and you begin to develop confidence in yourself to have the power to do more discipline in the principles of bhakti. And another sub-principle of discipline is that correct practice makes perfect. So you go slow in order to go fast later. Take the time necessary to do the practices correctly. If you're sloppy in the beginning, try to go fast or try to imitate someone who's more advanced, then you won't learn properly. But if you start off with the basics and you do them correctly from the very beginning, first of all, they're extremely edifying in and of themselves. So it's fine to go slow. Do it slowly and correctly, and then as you gain traction, then you'll be able to do them at any speed. I say speed, but what I mean is you'll gain proficiency in them if you attend to them properly in the very beginning. And finally, the power of discipline is that if you discipline yourself in any area of your life, it will affect all the other areas of your life. Similarly, if you let down in any one area, you may think, well, I only let down in this one area, and it doesn't really matter. But actually, it will affect all the other ways, all the other aspects of your life. So be attentive to the various disciplines that are offered. There's a verse in the Bhagavad-gita, Ragadvesha vimuktais vishayan indriyais amavashyarvate atma prasadamarigatshiti, in which Krishna advocates that one carefully follow what he calls the regulative principles of freedom, because there's a way in which by carefully following these regulative principles, then one becomes free. Eric Fromm talked about the difference between freedom to do things. Everyone's clamoring for freedom. I want freedom to do whatever I like. And that's why when people came to form a perfect nation here in the United States, they gave a Bill of Rights to the citizens in which they enumerated the ways in which people would be free to do various things. And even the Constitution itself guarantees the right to pursue, the right to be free for assembly, for religious practice, freedom of speech. What's the fourth one? No, that's the Second Amendment. There's four things. Freedom of assembly, freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom of the press. Thanks. Who said that? Thank you very much, sir. Freedom of press. And so there's this idea of freedom to do things. The living entity is originally free. We're free spirits, but we get caught up by Durga, which makes it difficult to go anywhere. It's a prison house. We try to get freedom. So there's freedom to do things, but more importantly, Eric Fromm said, was a freedom from. What are you free from? Because when one's conditioned, one may want to do so many things, but you can't do them anyway until you become free from the influence of material nature. And one can achieve this by discipline, by carefully following the regular principles of freedom given to us by Krishna. Then you become free from influence of the modes of nature. Kamadinam katina katida palita durnideshas tesham jata magina karuna natrapa nopashanti utsrijaitanata yadupate samprata labda buddhis tamayata sharanam abhayam mam nyungshvatmadasye. A devotee prays like this and says, For how long and how many ways have I served the bad masters of lust, anger, greed, etc.? They never gave me time off. They never gave me mercy. And I never even questioned them. I just followed them, and I thought, oh, these are my masters forever. He said, no more. Now I've gained my intelligence, and I'm not going to follow these bad masters anymore. What I'm going to do is approach Krishna for personal service. I'm just going to serve him. Utsridai tanata yarupate. And this is the freedom from the influence of material nature so that we're free to serve Krishna. So discipline. If you look no further, if you learn how to apply discipline in your life, then you learn everything that you need to know, and you'll become free from the influence of the three modes of material nature, particularly when you apply the disciplines recommended by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his disciples. And now we'll take a few more reflections before I move on to the next principle. Yes?
I just want to announce for our online viewers, of which there are over 150, Hare Krishna. Thank you for listening. You can text in your comments and questions to 720-231-6302. 720-231-6302. Hare Krishna.
Our operators are standing by to take your calls.
I wanted to note the obvious connection, maybe not so obvious, but the obvious connection between number 1 and number 2, that you will only discipline yourself to the extent that you have a desire for the result. Maybe you can elaborate.
And may go the other way as well. If by intelligence, as Krishna recommends in the 3rd chapter of the Bhagavad-gita, evam buddhi param budvasam stabhyatmanam jahi shatram mahabaho kamarupam darasadam. He said, conquer the lower self by the higher self. Develop your intelligence. And if you can muster enough intelligence to discipline yourself, then you'll also develop more desire as you see the results of the discipline. And I like the other way you pointed out as well, that when you have the desire, then you can do the discipline. So they complement each other, definitely. What a nice point. Thank you. Let's have a few more. Sharing means caring, according to the Salvation Army.
Also, I like the point where you were saying that discipline, it helps with confidence. And I've noticed also that sometimes confidence can turn into pride.
Oh, yeah, well, you got to be careful of that, because pride cometh before the fall, and that's a fact. If you get puffed up in a certain position, then Krishna very mercifully helps to embarrass you in some way, or show you that the ability is not coming from you. And then when you become relieved of that pride, then you can start from a stronger position and be more careful of pride. And it's important to have spiritual integrity, which means that it's not what it means, but one of the aspects of it is that you're the same when you're in public as you are when you're in private. Because, as Krishna mentions when we read in the 11th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, that you should always remember that Krishna is the witness. And if you work to catch Krishna's attention, you're doing whatever you're restraining yourself from, or whatever you're extending yourself for, and if you're thinking, I'm doing this for Krishna, and you remember that Krishna is the observer in all circumstances. Others may not be watching you. In other words, the false ego says, everyone's watching me, and therefore let me show my stuff. But actually, the joke's on such a person, because everyone's actually thinking the same thing. Everyone's watching me. But Krishna's watching everyone. Vedaham samatitani vartamanani charjana bhavishani chabhutani mam tu venan kaschana. He knows everyone, he knows everything, he knows our intentions, and so forth. So Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur said, don't try to see God, but try to work in such a way that he'll want to see you. And really that has so much to do with spiritual integrity. It's so empowering to have spiritual integrity, to know that you're good for it, that you can do the right thing when you're behind closed doors. If you know that within yourself, it develops a kind of confidence that helps you to move forward in spiritual life. What else? Yes.
Thank you. I just want to share a personal experience I've had. You mentioned earlier about sometimes you can think, maybe I can neglect this a little bit, and then in one spiritual practice. So I had the experience where I had very strong reading, like 2 hours a day for a good amount of time, and then at one point my mind said, well, it's only, you only have 5 pages left, you could leave it till tomorrow. And then I said, well, okay, I'll do it. And I went for that, and then, eventually it became, okay, it's 10 pages, but you always finish your pages, leave it for the next day, you'll catch up. And then I've noticed that just by slacking even a little bit, it actually has a snowball effect, and then it becomes very difficult. My experience, it becomes very difficult to go back to the high standard of sadhana.
Yes, thank you for practical experience. By degrees, one improves oneself, even tiny degrees. And by degrees, one can also turn the arrow in the other direction and begin to lose one's grip by tiny degrees. I used to go backpacking with my father in the mountains, and we would, there's a science to packing a backpack, and the basic principle that he taught me was, watch out for the ounces, and the pounds will take care of themselves. You have to look for the little things. Don't think anything's too small. If you attend to the small disciplines and you're careful about little things, then the overall effect will be great on your life. Yes, Jai Gopal Prabhu.
We have a few reflections from the internet.
Oh, that's good. Okay, let's... he said there's the same principle in money management, which is? Manage your pennies and your dollars will follow. Yes, thank you. Very important.
Okay. Premalata Cherupalli. Correct practice makes perfect. That was a reflection. Someone was appreciating that association is very important. So these are just reflections. There's a couple of questions here too. I'm just doing the reflections first. Deepti Singh. Correct oneself from the beginning and discipline one's life will help to progress in devotional life. Mandra Ghosh Prabhu. I like how by discipline we get free from doing unwanted things. Are we taking questions?
It's Mandra Ghosh. That means that's the name of Krishna's buffalo horn. It means rolling thunder. Haribol, Mandra Ghosh, Hare Krishna. Go ahead.
Questions? Okay, so I can turn this phone back on. How to keep yourself away from anger?
Well, first by not becoming attracted to the objects of the senses, or not contemplating them. And Prabhupada speaks about this in the Bhagavad-gita, that the more that one becomes attached to material sense gratification and therefore contemplates and longs for the sense objects, as Krishna gives the progression that leads to anger, dhyayato vashan pumsam sangasteshu bhajayate sangat sangadhe kama kamat krodha bhajayate. It starts off by looking at the world as a place to enjoy. That's a big mistake. And so then you develop a sangha for it. Means you become attached. It becomes part of you, actually. You have to carry the burden around as you connect to things and you say they're my things. And now it's part of you. You have to own it. So then after that, sangas teju bhajayate, sangas te kama, kama krodha bhajayate, krodha bhavati samaha. So then after you try to enjoy and you become frustrated, then you become, then anger ensues. So there's a downward spiral that can be curbed by diverting one's attention towards thinking about how to do good for others, how to spread the Sankirtan movement, and extending oneself to try to do service for the world by making sure that people get contact with Krishna consciousness. That's helpful. And also, don't eat too much. If you eat too much, then it leads to all kinds of sense problems, and then you'll naturally lose your temper at some point. You should have a balanced diet. Okay, and now I'm going to give you the third principle, which is attitude. So, attitude is very important, and fortunately it's something that you can adjust. If you decide to change your attitude, then you can work on it and develop a new attitude. And Prabhupada says in the introduction, or the preface rather, to the Nectar of Instruction, that the advancement of a bhakti yogi is dependent on his or her attitude. So you'll advance according to your attitude. So a few attitude traits that are extremely helpful for advancing in bhakti. And one of them is that nothing will change until I do. Take it upon yourself to adjust your life so that you become more attractive to Krishna. And the second is that failure is the pillar to success. Don't become overwhelmed by mistakes that you make. Rather, go on sincerely practicing devotional service and realize that whatever mistakes you make can be very valuable, and they can lead to foundational ways in which you'll be even stronger than you were before. The next is the attitude is don't be upset with the instrument of your karma. So there are ways that we'll receive reactions from our previous work, and the quintessential attitude of a devotee is mentioned in the Srimad Bhagavatam, Tatteyonakam pam susamikshamano bunjana evatma kritam vibhakam hridbhagvapurvir viradam namaste jive tayo mukti pade sadaya bhak. Once you develop this attitude, and that is, whatever comes to us, we accept as Krishna's mercy and as purification. And a devotee thinks that whatever reactions I'm getting in this life are a token for what I deserve. And Krishna's very kind, that he's only giving me a small portion of what I deserve. And so when bad things happen to a devotee, he thinks like that. And he thinks Krishna's so merciful. And when good things happen, he thinks, I don't deserve it. Krishna's so merciful. And when bad things happen to an atheist, he thinks, see, there is no God. How could anything bad happen to me? I don't deserve it. And when good things happen, he says, see, I don't need God. I'm so expert. I make good things happen in my life. But a devotee is the opposite of that. He always takes everything as Krishna's mercy. And he's not upset with the instrument of his karma. Just like the Avanti Brahmana, he was a very wealthy landholder. He was into agriculture. And he amassed a fortune, but he didn't share it. And he didn't do much sacrifice for the demigods either. He was a miser. And after a while, people started despising him. And the demigods turned on him, and then all his family members turned on him, and then he lost everything. All his wealth dried up. But actually, what happened was, during some of this, he did some religious sacrifice early in life, and during one of the religious sacrifices, he was actually praying to God in a sincere way. So after everything diminished in his life, there was still a tiny seed of desire to serve God within his heart. That's how powerful it is to make a sincere prayer to God. And from that, he started a new life of devotion. He took sannyas and he went wandering just to please God. And as he was wandering everywhere in the world, people abused him. They spit on him. They stole his food. They tied him in chains. They called him ill names. They laughed at him and said, "You're not a real sannyasi. You just lost everything. And that's why you took sannyas, just to fill your belly." And you can read his reaction to all of these taunts when you in the Bhagavatam. And he says that, who can I blame? Actually, this is just a result of my own interactions with the material world. He says, if I bite my own tongue, who am I going to blame? Can you blame the tongue, the teeth, me, someone else? And this is the attitude of the devotee, that I'm just dependent on Krishna's mercy. And the other attitude is to remain humble and hungry. Always have this hunger for spiritual knowledge and advancement. Because as in the Ayurveda describes, health is based on your ability to digest. Any Ayurvedic scientists in here? Okay, then I can say anything. I've heard that the basis of the Ayurvedic science is digestion. If your digestion is very strong, then the rest of the functions of your body will respond also. So you have to keep your digestion strong. So similarly, you have to keep a strong hunger for advancing in devotional service. And by that, you'll always be interested and be able to absorb the necessary energy of bhakti. Then also you should be humble. So I like to put the two words together. They sound good. Be humble and hungry. Say. Yeah, everybody knows this. I once heard a professional football player say it. He's a new football player, and he said, "Yeah, I just got to remain humble and hungry in order to be, in the top of his game." And so this is well known, that you have to remain humble and hungry. And in bhakti, it's especially applicable. And next is to be an instrument. Be an instrument. Because we're not the doers. And if we take this attitude that I'm an instrument, then we'll be fearless in our services. And there's a way that you can become an instrument very easily. Should I teach it to you? Okay. So I want you to reach to the back of your head, and right at the base of your neck there's a little switch. And when you flip the switch, you go from being a human being with all kinds of cares and anxieties. Anybody here have any cares and anxieties? Okay, you're all human then. I just wanted to make sure. And then when you flip the switch, you're no longer a human, but you turn into a robot. A robot doesn't have any feelings. It just gets programmed and it does what it's told. Are you ready? 1, 2, 3, flip. Now you're an instrument. You're just a robot, an automaton, and you do whatever you're told to do. And if you're ever feeling cares and anxiety in your life, and you'd like to get rid of them really quickly, just flip the switch and say, I really don't care because I'm a robot. And I just do whatever Krishna said to do. Actually, someone might say, you're just being dogmatic. But if you're following the right dogma, there's nothing wrong with being dogmatic, actually. People who catch on by good fortune or by intelligence to the correct dogma and just follow it dogmatically are fortunate souls. They don't have to worry about a thing. So if one can triangulate and find that there is a source of perfect knowledge, Krishna, and then you find out the way that that knowledge flows into the world through Bhagavad-gita, and you just say, okay, from now on, I'm not going to do my own thing. I don't have any more agenda. I'm just throwing my agenda away. That feels good. And then you say, whatever Krishna's agenda is, that's what I'm going to follow because I'm a robot and I'm programmed to do this. And so that makes life very simple and happy, actually. Don't tell anybody I said that. And related to that is let Krishna be the doer. This is actually even a subcategory of being an instrument. But remember, Krishna is a doer. Let him do it. You can't figure it out for yourself. I may misinterpret the way in which Krishna is doing things, but have faith that he's doing things properly. And if I'm his devotee, he'll do things in the way that is beneficial, not just for me, but all living entities. I was once gardening in our backyard, California, and then I saw the unthinkable. A little bird flew in the house. That's not a good place for a bird. So I went in the kitchen, and that's where he flew in first. And I said, little birdie, I'm going to let you out. So I opened some of the double pane windows, and he heard the clamor, and he flew to the next room. So I said, little birdie, I came to save you. And I opened the windows in that room. Then he flew into the living room. I opened all the windows in that room. He flew to the bedroom. I opened all the windows in that room. Flying around the house. Gets all the way back to the kitchen. We went around every room. And he gets back in there, and he looks at me square in the eye and said, you tried to kill me, and now I'm going to get away. And he went out the window. And after he left, the image of that little bird's fearful eyes stuck in my mind. And I thought, that's me. Krishna's opening windows everywhere. He said, go out. And I'm thinking, he's chasing me around from one room to the next. He's trying to demolish everything I've built. But he's just trying to let me free. So if we depend on Krishna, this is one of the tenets of surrender. Remember that Krishna's the protector and he's the maintainer. Let him do his thing. He knows what he's doing. Prita Maharaj prays that I don't know what I'm doing. I'm like a little child toward the Father. The Father knows how to direct. So he says, Krishna, you're my Father. You know what's good for me. I have no idea. So I'm not even going to ask. Why should I ask for everything? I'll just ruin it. So you decide. And that's an exciting prayer to make. Krishna, you take over my life and you do whatever you wish. Then you're living on the edge. Then that's kind of exciting, isn't it? Yeah. The rest is tedious and difficult, trying to follow one's own agenda. And it doesn't work anyway. You always get the opposite result of what you're hoping for. So just give up. And the final one, in the attitude, is don't major in minor things. There are a lot of minor things, but don't get a PhD in them. Just let them go. And find out what the major things are in life. The major issues. What are the core things? What things really make a big difference? Get a PhD in those things. Hey, you can get a PhD in entomology and find out every kind of beetle on earth. And actually, you won't even come to the end of it. But who cares? But if you find out, Krishna says, Yomam eva masamudho janati purushottamam. That's the sarva bhavina bharata. Did I get it? Yomam eva masamudho janati purushottamam. Sasarva bhajatimam. Sarva bhavina bharata. If you know me, if you're concentrated on me, if you major in me, then you know everything. Then you came to the right department. All the other departments they come up with nowadays are, of course, you can't criticize education, you can use it, but the fact is, the ultimate goal of all knowledge and education is come to know Krishna. And if what you cultivate in life is divorced from that, then you don't get anything. So those who are very intelligent, they go straight to Krishna and they say, I'm going to get a PhD in Srimad Bhagavatam. I'm going to major in Bhagavad-gita. I mean, who does that? There's billions of people in India, and you ask them about Bhagavad-gita, And you can go through, everyone will say, I know Bhagavad-gita, my mother knows Bhagavad-gita. Do you read Bhagavad-gita? I don't have time. That's not true. You have time. You have the same 24 hours a day that everybody else does. It's not time, it's taste. So develop a taste for Bhagavad-gita, major in that. And see if it doesn't change your life. It absolutely will. So attitude is one of the key principles to success in bhakti. And now we'll take some reflections. Yes, Ananda.
I remember one of the first classes that I ever heard you give, it was up in Boulder. And you said, and I remember writing it down, you said this prayer, thank you, Krishna, for the way things are now. It was related to that, just like, I'm forgetting it now, it's drawing a blank, but thank you, Krishna, for everything and the way things are now. Now do with me as you like. That was it. So just reflecting that principle.
Yeah. That breeds excitement in life. What's going to happen next? What does Krishna want me to do now? Just put your life in his hands. What other thing did you hear? Yes, Prabhu.
I really appreciated that point of you were mentioning about the Avanti Brahmana, how he just accepted everything as Krishna's mercy. And we read in your book that one of the I forget what it was, but it was like a series of like intentions for book distribution at ISV, and one of them is I distribute books for my own purification. So it reminded me of that, and sometimes if I'm successful in like meditating on that when I'm out on books, it makes it a lot easier.
Yeah, it does, and it also makes it easier to present the idea of book distribution to people, managers and things all over the world, that the main reason to do this is because of what it makes of the devotees to go out into the world, into the great unknown. And every time you leave the comfort zone of your own home, your own ashram, everyone has some comfort zone. I garden, and sometimes I turn over a rock, and there's a little fella under there looking at me like, hey, knock it off. I like it down here. And so everyone's got their little rock somewhere in the universe. And it's like, this is my comfort place. It's silly too. In gardening, sometimes I'll lean a shovel against the shed, and then I'll come back the next day and a spider built a web from the handle to the shed. And I try to explain to him that that's a very inappropriate place to build your house. But then I think about, I'm in a universe that gets blown up every once in a while, torn to shreds, and I'm thinking, what am I talking to him for? I'm doing the same thing. So don't become attached to your little thing. Anything else? Yes.
I like that point that nothing will change until I do, because I connected it with the idea that, devotional service can be practiced anywhere, at any time, in any circumstance. And that's philosophy, but my mind says that, well, actually I need the perfect environment, and I need everyone to completely agree with me, and I have this whole thing that's got to be just like that. And if it's not like that, then it's some other person's fault, or God's fault, or the circumstances. But actually, that's not how it works. That you actually can practice devotional service at any time, and you get the result. It's kind of just a trick of the mind to say anything else.
Yeah, it's very empowering also. That from wherever you are now, start now with what you have now. And don't stall because of the things that you don't have. Just because you don't have some things doesn't mean you can't start now with what you have and make advancement. And it's remarkable that just by utilizing whatever facility you have at the present time, that Krishna will give you more and more facility, because it always expands. And it can start in the smallest place with the smallest intention, but if it's done consistently and with as much purity and sincerity as one can muster, then it grows. Just like Matsudev. He was a little minnow when he caught a ride back to the king's house. He just said, get me out of here. These big fish are going to get me. And so the king took him out and took him home. Then he grew a little bigger. Then he put me in a pond. Then he put him in a lake. Then he put him in the ocean. Then he grew to 8 million yojanas long. And that's what Krishna does. He grows in our life. If we learn to take advantage of what we have right now, it'll grow. If you just purify the vibration wherever you are, the secret to starting over your own Krishna consciousness movement, it's right there in seed form. Anyone who wants to help spread the Krishna consciousness movement all over the world can go anywhere at any time or stay wherever you are, it doesn't matter. And if you simply purify the vibration that you're making yourself, your speech is honest, you're honest with yourself, you chant purely, and you do what you can with what you have right now, then it'll increase and increase. And then it becomes something unimaginable. And if somebody asks, how did you do it? And you ask somebody who's successful, like people ask Prabhupada all the time, how did you do it? He said, I just followed the order of my spiritual master. It's not a complicated thing. It's a simple thing. But it has to be done with clarity, and one has to purify the vibration. Okay. So the next principle is practice. So there's 4 aspects to practice on this list. I think I put 2 more in the book. But practice should be regular. As the great violinist Joshua Hevitz once said, if I don't practice one day, I notice it. If I don't practice 2 days, then my teacher notices it. If I don't practice 3 days, then everybody in the world notices it, especially my critics. So that's why we do sadhana every day, not every other day. You have to be on top of it, you have to be regular. And the second aspect of practice is it has to be attentive. Because the mind, although the senses take in information, unless the mind is attentive when the information comes in, then there's no register. For instance, you can be reading a book, Shishi Gornitai ki jai, Shishi Radha Govinda ji ki jai, Jai Jagannath Baladev Subhaji ji ki jai. Keep going. You can be reading a book and thinking about something else at the same time. Is that possible? And then your eyes are connected to the words, but nothing registered. And you can realize, I just read 2 paragraphs, but if someone asked me now, what did you just read? In fact, I've seen that. I was in Los Angeles one day, I was sitting in a class, and then we came out, and one of my godbrothers said, it was a fantastic class. And someone said, what was it about? And he goes, I don't know. I just have a vague remembrance that it was good. So being attentive is important. And what we have to offer in the practice of bhakti to Krishna is our attention. Because ultimately, to put it in a clinical way, a living entity is a little unit of attention. And we have free will where to place our attention. And where we place it will direct our energy, because where attention goes, energy flows. So practice should be attentive. And third one is practice should be goal-oriented. Sankhya Purvaka Nama Gananati Bi. The Goswamis of Vrindavan set this example. They counted everything. They measured it. Sankhya. Sankhya Purvaka. They're very careful to keep track because the mind's so tricky. It'll do 1 today, 2 tomorrow, 3 next day, and then 0 on day 4. And so you have to keep track and make little notches. You can take a Sharpie and make a little mark on your arm when you do it. You can show it off. Then, number 4 is practice should be according to one's personal capacity. Find out what pace you can keep consistently and then stay with it. Regular, attentive, goal-oriented, and according to one's capacity. And the 5th principle of success in bhakti is to keep the vibration going. Yena tena prakarena mana Krishna niveshayat. One way or another, keep your mind fixed on Krishna. The best way to do that is to keep the transcendental vibration going. What is it? Yes, if you have any questions about how to advance in devotional service, it's this. Always keep yourself next to the transcendental vibration. And if you change the vibration, if you change the channel somewhere else, then don't blame anybody else. There was that song David Byrne wrote, I don't know what you expect staring into the TV set. Remember that? Yeah, so what do you expect? You look in the TV set and then what do you think's going to happen? Your mind's going to turn to mush. And the reaction will be there from the material sound. So if you want to be a hero, then change the vibration to transcendental mode and keep it there your whole life. You can't afford to take in any more of the lower vibration because it pulls you down and life's very short. It could end at any time. And so just take it like they do in AA. It's like people in AA, they can't, like, so I'll just have a little drink. That's not possible, as they're addicted. And then that'll lead to complete downfall. So the same way, we don't take in a little bit of the material vibration. We keep it on the transcendental vibration. And that's this system for advancing in devotional service. Keep the vibration going. Remember to do that we need shelter at every moment. That Krishna is non-different from his name. That difficult things become easy when you remember Lord Chaitanya. And vice versa. When you forget him, then easy things become hard. And this is a great trick that's so simple that whatever you're doing, keep the vibration of the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra going and remember Lord Chaitanya. Because life is not so hard when you're chanting Hare Krishna. We experience this, for instance, you go in Sankirtan, and in between talking to people, you can keep the vibration going, or you can talk about all kinds of weird stuff. When we go door to door with large numbers of people, the record, I think, was the other day, was in Alachua, and everyone went to different spots, but they all converged at the end of the day, and there were about 65 people left. And the last door I knocked on, we had 65 people standing there, and they opened the door. But in between, when you get 65 people together, there's a possibility you can start chattering. And so I was asking the devotees in between, just keep the vibration, the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra going. And you could feel how that was lifting everyone up. And also, when you knock on somebody's door, then you don't know who's going to answer, and your heart can start pounding. So you just go, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And then immediately feel like Krishna's controlling everything, and he's right here present, so what's the problem? So if you keep that vibration going constantly, then you'll be successful in everything that you do in life. And then the final secret is to overcome weakness of heart. Weakness of heart is spelled W-O-H. What does that spell? Whoa, whoa, whoa. Overcome weakness of heart. So the first way to do that is to make voluntary life changes. Volunteer to make these changes before they're imposed upon you. Be preemptive. Find out what kind of life changes are good to make. Make a list, because now it's the end of the year. Make a list of the life changes you'd like to make, and then voluntarily do them before somebody else, some other power comes into your life and makes you do something else. Frame or be framed. You have to frame the way you want your life to be, otherwise someone else will frame it for you. So decide what you want and write it down and make voluntary life changes. We call those VLCs. Attend to your VLCs, and you can be self-directing in your life. And the next item of overcoming weakness of heart is inspirational sadhana. Everyone say. Inspirational sadhana. It's illegal to do sadhana without getting some inspiration. It's your fault. Take it as your fault. If you do your japa, if you do your reading, whatever practice you're doing, and then you're feeling dull, it's your fault. Get up for it. Dig deep. Pray that I can enter deeply within the practice. You have to get something from it, otherwise it's called niyamagraha. You're doing it, but you're not getting a result. You're not supposed to do that. You're supposed to get a result. So pray to Krishna and tell him, I'm not moving until you give me a little taste. I won't leave. I'll stay right here. People come in, clean the floor, and go, no, I'm not getting up because I didn't get a taste. And practice bhakti like that. I'm not going to go until I get something, Krishna. You got to throw me one molecule at least, something. And if you pray like that and you get some inspiration from your sadhana, then even one molecule can keep you going for 10 years in bhakti. And then you get another molecule. You go for another 10 years. But you got to dig for it. And the next way to overcome weakness of heart is to cultivate gratitude. Because by cultivating gratitude, you can overwhelm the weakness of heart that's there by the power of gratitude. It's a very powerful force in this universe, to be grateful. And it's not so hard. If you just look around and appreciate the fact that you're being maintained at every second by a supreme, benevolent, beautiful personality, and you just show a little gratitude, then you'll be able to overcome the petty weakness of heart that tells you that you should be a little weakling here in the material world and accept paltry sense gratification as a standard of life. Don't stand for mediocrity. And then, related to that, is to develop your appreciating capacity. Every living entity has a capacity to appreciate. In fact, we are created to appreciate. That's your job. You're supposed to appreciate. Because Krishna is the one, but Eko Bahusham, the one becomes many. Why? Because he needs somebody to appreciate him. What's the use of being God if nobody appreciates you? And that's why he expands himself into unlimited living entities, because he has to be appreciated unlimitedly. And so all you have to do in your life is appreciate. And to the degree that you've developed your appreciating capacity, to that degree you're actually successful in your life. So just make that your main occupation in life, how to appreciate Krishna and Krishna's devotees and Krishna's energies more and more and more. And then you'll overcome the weakness of heart, which is defined as this irrational desire to enjoy matter. And finally, don't harbor material motives. It's like harboring a fugitive. You can go to jail for that. If you let the fugitive, you know the guy just robbed a bank, but you let him in the house. He killed somebody on the way out, and you're like, all right, come on, you can stay in here. And you let him stay. And once they find him, and they will, and he's in your house, and they found out you let him stay, you're going to jail too. So don't harbor material desires. Don't let material motives stay in your hearts. Say, sir, you can't stay here. I'm going to get in trouble for this. You got to go. You can't stay, please. Not here, somewhere else. And don't tolerate it. So weakness of heart is something that Prabhupada mentions in the last purport to the 15th chapter of the Bhagavad-gita. The last verse of the 15th chapter of the Bhagavad-gita, he said, weakness of heart, must be overcome in order to advance in devotional service. So now we'll take some final reflections or questions. Ananda Murari Prabhu.
Just earlier you were speaking about discipline and about acting from where you are, that there's no obstruction. Wherever you're at, you can start acting. But and then we get to these other principles like just the one you just mentioned about not allowing not harboring any material desires. Sometimes I've noticed it's hard to differentiate between, there doesn't seem to be a spectrum there. It seems to be like white or black. Does that make sense what I'm asking?
Which are the white and black?
Like that, say when I hear you can start performing devotional service from wherever you're at, I understand that to be like, even if you have some material desires, and you're still like, okay, so I have these material desires and I'm dealing with those. And then this thing about not harboring material
So
motives.
harboring is a special thing. It means that you're actually giving safe haven. So although you may start from an imperfect state, and Krishna acknowledges this in the verse, Jatashara makatasu nirvina sarvakarmasu veda dukatmakam kamams prityage panishvara. He said you may have a recognition, you may awaken your desire for devotional service, taste. You may also recognize that all kinds of material sense gratification leads to misery, and you may be disgusted with the whole thing, but prityaga pranishvara, you might not have the power to overcome it still. But then he goes on to say, Tatoba jetamam prita shradalur judanishchaya jushamanam satankamams dukodarkams chakarayan. You should still go on with the practice and be happy because you're going to be successful. But the point is, you shouldn't maintain them. Just like when a guest comes to your house and you can't stand him and you want to get rid of him, what you do is you still serve him food, but you don't put any salt in it. And when they ask for salt, they go, can I get a little salt here? And you go like, God, we don't have any, sorry. And it's like, how come you guys are leaving? It's like, I thought your flight was in 3 days. It's like, I think we got to go. My mom called and she needs a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. I got to get out of here. But if you feed your desires and you say, nice little guy, you can stay in here. That's not right. That they're there, that's understandable, but don't give them safe haven. Don't harbor them. Don't let them stay. And the other point is you should be proactive and pray to Krishna and say, listen, Krishna, I'm too weak to get rid of these material desires. I didn't even know how I got them in the first place, but they're there, and now I can't get rid of them. I'm too weak. I can't do it. So here's what I'd like to do, what I'd like to ask you. I'm going to chant, and while I'm chanting, I'm going to leave the door open, and I'm going to look the other way. And if you want to come in and take them out, then please feel free to do that. At least give them permission. Leave the door unlocked. It's under the mat. The key's under the mat. You come in. I'll look the other way. It's too painful to give up my material desires because they become sangha. Now they're me. It's part of me, my material desires. So you can ask Krishna, be daring and tell him you take them out. I give permission. I'm too weak. But you shouldn't maintain. That's the 10th offense against the holy name. Maintaining material desires even after understanding so many instructions on the matter. So maintaining things takes a lot of work. Like plants, you got to maintain them. Kids, you got to maintain them. And you have to then, Prabhupada writes in his purport, the way to get rid of them is tender, loving neglect. Just neglect them. This is called applied procrastination. They teach it at all the Ivy League schools now. And you learn how to use the procrastination. Just don't attend to them. Let them starve. Okay, you had a point?
Can you explain a few examples of material desire? Because as soon as you said the New Year's coming up, I wrote down my list of 2018 decide what you want list. And how do you discern what's a material desire?
Well, you can compare it to the list of the list that describes Sharanagati, the sixfold path of taking shelter of Krishna, or it's also called the sixfold path of surrender to Krishna. So the first two are to accept things that are favorable for Krishna's service and reject things that are unfavorable. So then if you have on your list and you look and see what's favorable for devotional service, that you keep or add it to your list. And if it's unfavorable to your devotional service, then you strike it off your list. Say, this one I'm going to dump. And sometimes it's hard to tell, so you have to talk to a few people and get their opinion. For instance, someone may say, I'll give you a job, it's a lot more money, but you're going to have to live in Timbuktu, and there's no devotees there. And then the other guy says, I'll give you half the money, and you live right next to the temple. Now you might think, all right, well, I'll use all that money for Krishna, so that's devotional service, or I'll live right next to the temple. And they say, I'm not sure which one to do. So then you start interviewing some advanced people, and they'll say, listen, stay next to the temple, because that way you can attend the morning program. Plus, the money, the house will probably appreciate. You'll figure it all out. And if you try to figure it out based on what's best for the service, then you won't make a mistake. And even if you do make a mistake and choose the wrong one, Krishna will make up for it. You'll buy the crummy house next to the temple, and then you'll discover an oil well underneath. It's like, oh my God, there's oil under there. You're a billionaire now. And the other house ends up in a sinkhole and it'll go down. And that's how the world works. It works by Krishna's divine arrangement. So if you just try to pick things that are best for your service and best for pleasing Krishna, then you'll never go wrong. And that's pretty nice. Thank you. Yes, the sadhu in the back, in the middle.
So I have a question. Like on one hand, we say that everything is happening as per Krishna's will. He is the doer. On the other hand, we also believe in the philosophy of karma. So whatever state we are in today, is it because of our own karma, or is it because of Krishna's mercy? Can you please clarify this?
Well, in a sense, karma is Krishna's mercy, because the whole universe is set up in such a way to help us refine ourselves. And so karma is not some arbitrary punishment just to watch living entities suffer. That's what some people think. But actually, karma is a very merciful way to teach us how to refine ourselves so that we can love again. And love is the highest happiness. And so it's a huge project set up to help people refine themselves, karma. So actually karma is Krishna's mercy. Because when I hurt other people and then it comes back to me, then I learn, oh, I shouldn't hurt other people. And when I do good for other people, I learn, oh, actually doing good, then I grow in my life and so forth. The universe is set up in a very precise way, and it's for our benefit. It's for our ultimate benefit. And when one becomes a devotee and realizes that everything's coming by Krishna's mercy, and one surrenders to Krishna, then Krishna actually helps to refine the ways in which the universe reacts to us, very specifically to purify our hearts of any last vestiges of desires we have to stay in the material world. So it's mercy on a macro level, and on a micro level, when we surrender to Krishna, what appears to be karma, our acharyas say, is actually a very special way in which Krishna is interacting with his devotees, so that they don't get hung up here on any last little trivial things in the material world. He knows how to surgically remove them in a very precise way. And that's his kindness. That's why he's called Hari. He takes away all our misery, even when we can't. He's an expert thief. Everyone knows that in Vrindavan. Krishna goes around and steals butter and everything else that's not nailed down. And so similarly, he can also take away our desires. He's very expert. Even if we build a big wall up there, then he'll figure out a way to break in, and he'll take it. So we keep chanting, Hare, 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 Hare. Come steal it away. Steal away all these unnecessary things I'm carrying around with me. Any last thing? Yes, Mataji. Yes. Her name is Vishnupriya, yes.
I have heard Prabhupada says all the time that we have to serve Krishna and think of Krishna 24 hours a day.
Yes.
So how is that possible? Because, we sleep 6 hours, 7 hours at night.
Okay, for sleeping, Prabhupada gives the example. He said when he observed a shopkeeper who was selling cloth. Actually, it may have been his father, I'm not sure. His father was a cloth merchant. But he said all day long he was quoting prices. And then he saw when the shopkeeper would take a nap in the day, lie down on the floor of the shop, and he was dreaming, and he was still quoting prices. So in the same way, when you absorb yourself in your regular waking period of life enough, then in your sleeping period, you'll also be thinking of Krishna. And I just read something profound the other day in the 4th canto of the Bhagavatam. Prabhupada said, the way that you dream, daydream and dream at night, is an indicator of the way your consciousness will be directed at the time of death. Because when we're dreaming and sleeping, we're not in control of our senses. The mind is running on its own, and according to the way you've developed it. So similarly, at the time of death, when the mind becomes unhinged, if it just becomes attracted to all kinds of subject matters, that it's similar to the way in which we sleep. So we have to develop while we're awake. Now, about your question, how do we do it 24 hours a day? The acharyas answer this when it's said in the Shastra, Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya, you should do this 24 hours a day. It means eternally without stoppage, right? But our acharyas, particularly Jiva Goswami and Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, commenting on Rupa Goswami's Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, say what this means is at least every day. Because if you tell neophytes that you have to do this 24 hours a day, they'll become discouraged and they'll stop the process of bhakti. Therefore, what it means is you have to do it at least once a day. Okay. Something. And that's why I mentioned in practice, the last aspect of practice is according to one's personal capacity. Because if you try to do more than that, then you'll become discouraged.
Correct.
And if you do less than that, your advancement will be distant. You won't be able to advance very quickly. So you have to adjust your practice accordingly. That's why it's important to have mentors in your life, because Gaudiya Vaishnavism is a culture of guidance. You have to take guidance from every level. That's why in the beginning of the Chaitanya Charitamrita, the first verse of this quintessential book about Gaudiya Vaishnavism is Vande Gurun Isha Bhaktan. The first words he says, I offer my respectful obeisances to all my gurus. And so he's talking about, in the whole first chapter, the importance of getting guidance, so I know just how to do my sadhana properly. Does that help?
Thank you.
Okay. We thank everyone for coming together here in Denver, Colorado, and making a stand for the Sankirtan movement right here in Denver. There have been many changes in geography across this land now called the United States. You can see the Louisiana Purchase, the Bear Flag Revolution in California. I mean, all boundaries change. And throughout America, you can stop and see historic places where their forts were put up, fortresses for different kinds of battles. But we're fighting the ultimate battle here, which is the battle for Lord Chaitanya. So this is a fortress, and it's a place where you're protected, so you can come in here and chant amongst those who will encourage you and say, very good, you should do this, and continue to do it. And then it's a place to go out to fight with Maya. You get fortified in here by your practice, and then you have to go out and drop hundreds and thousands of bombs in the form of books into the laps of the conditioned souls, and then chant Hare Krishna so people can hear it, and then benefit by hearing the beautiful holy name of the Lord, and then give them some nice prasadam. Thank you very much. Gaur Premanande Haribo. Nitai Gaura Haribo. 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 Nitai Gaura Hari. Nitai Gaura Hari. Hari. Haribo. Nitai Gaura Hari. Vanchakalpataruscha Krupasanabevacha Patitanam Pavanibhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Nantakoti Vaishnaviniki Jai.
Nachari Marman, Nachari Marman, Nachari Marman, Nachari Marman, hey, Nachari Marman, Nachari Marman, Nachari Marman, Nachari Marman.